In the heart of France, in an elegant mansion in the residential neighborhood of Neuilly-sur-Seine, a life was about to change forever. The year was 1983, and Philippe Pozzo di Borgo, a man from a wealthy background and descendant of an ancient Italian family settled in France, faced the challenges of being tetraplegic after a paragliding accident. He had lost almost all physical mobility, but not his intelligence, sense of humor, or desire to live with dignity. The search for a caregiver was constant, as many people felt intimidated by his condition or treated him with pity. That's when he met Abdel Sellou, a young Algerian living in Paris who was looking for work to support his family. Abdel had no experience as a professional nurse, but he possessed something more valuable: sincerity, courage, and respect. His approach was different from the start: no false compassion, just equal treatment. For Philippe, this was revolutionary. Someone who saw beyond the wheelchair. They started with mutual skepticism, but soon a unique connection emerged. The routine of care began slowly, with small conversations and discoveries about cultural and social differences. Abdel learned quickly, observing Philippe's subtle gestures and anticipating his needs. At the same time, Philippe began to trust him in a way he never thought possible. It was as if, gradually, they were building a bridge between two completely different worlds. This relationship would go far beyond the professional. It would become a true friendship. And it is this human journey that we will explore in the coming chapters of this moving encounter. Philippe was born in 1953 in Paris, the child of a union between an aristocratic Italian family and a traditional French lineage. He grew up surrounded by privilege, refined education, and exposure to art, music, and international travel. His father, Marco Pozzo di Borgo, was a diplomat, and his mother, Marie-France de la Tour d'Auvergne, belonged to French nobility. Despite his privileged origins, Philippe always sought independence and adventure. He worked as a pilot, entrepreneur, and even practiced extreme sports such as paragliding and mountaineering. But everything changed in 1993, when a failed flight resulted in a severe spinal injury. He survived but lost movement in his arms, legs, and torso. Only his head and neck remained functional. That was when his life entered a new phase: the daily struggle for autonomy and meaning. Abdel, on the other hand, came from an opposite background. He was born in 1962 in Oran, Algeria, and migrated to France at a young age in search of better living conditions. He arrived with few resources, studied on his own, and worked in various informal jobs before trying something new. When he heard about the caregiver position, he decided to take a chance, even without formal experience. His direct and honest response caught Philippe's attention, and he decided to give him a chance. That's how two very different lives crossed paths, unaware that they would create a remarkable story. In the first days together, Abdel had to learn to care for Philippe with patience and extreme attention. From feeding to bathing, everything required technique, care, and sensitivity. Often, Abdel made simple mistakes, like reaching for objects too far away or forgetting to adjust Philippe's position. There were moments of frustration, both from the caregiver and the patient. But Abdel insisted on treating each mistake as an opportunity for growth. Philippe, in turn, began to appreciate the sincere effort, even if imperfect. Over time, Abdel came to understand Philippe's body language and facial expressions better. He knew his tastes, preferences, and even his bad moods. And surprisingly, Philippe began to open up more, showing emotions he used to keep hidden. The two developed a unique communication code made of glances, laughter, and understood silences. They started talking about politics, religion, family, and even death. Abdel told stories of his childhood in Algeria. Philippe spoke of his travels around the world and historical events. The relationship, which initially seemed purely functional, gained layers of intimacy and complicity. They were like two men finding in each other something they hadn't had in a long time: purpose. And in the next session, we will see how humor became an essential tool in this transformation. One of the key aspects of this friendship was the use of humor to deal with difficult situations. Abdel had a particular way of joking about Philippe's situation without ever hurting his pride. "You can only move your head, so do me a favor and turn it the other way so I can sleep," Abdel would say, half serious, half joking. Philippe loved it. Finally, someone who didn't treat him like an invalid. Instead of pity, there was irony, teasing, and constant wordplay. This helped Philippe regain part of his self-esteem and accept his new reality with lightness. And Abdel also benefited. By interacting with such a cultured and intelligent man, he expanded his horizons. He began reading books recommended by Philippe, listening to classical music, and even visiting museums with him. They went together to concerts, restaurants, and night outings, where Abdel enjoyed watching people's reactions to the millionaire in a wheelchair. On several occasions, Abdel made jokes about Philippe's luxurious life. "And you have everything and complain about everything," and Philippe would reply with irony. "And you have nothing and laugh at everything." This constant exchange brought them closer, generating a relationship of trust and freedom. They could talk about anything, including sensitive topics like death, love, and loneliness. For Abdel, this was more than a job. It was a school of life. And for Philippe, it was like having found a younger brother full of energy and different perspectives. As time went on, Abdel began to realize that Philippe needed more than just physical care. He needed motivation. He decided, then, to introduce new experiences into his friend's routine. They started with simple activities like rides on an adapted motorcycle, glider flights, and even a trip to the mountains. Each adventure was carefully planned, but always with the goal of proving that life could still be lived. For Abdel, seeing Philippe smile as he felt the wind on his face was more rewarding than any paycheck. Philippe, in turn, recognized that Abdel was teaching him how to live with less fear and more courage. "He showed me that happiness lies in simple things, like a good cup of coffee or a sincere conversation," Philippe said in an interview. Abdel also learned from Philippe the importance of discipline, respect for others, and the pursuit of knowledge. Together, they went beyond employer and employee. They became teacher and student, and vice versa. They completed each other. One brought heart, the other reason. This symbiosis allowed both of them to grow as people and friends. Even Philippe's family began to notice the positive change in his behavior. Once more introverted and melancholic, he now seemed lighter, more active, and willing to embrace life. And what about Abdel? He became a beloved figure in the house and even received gifts and public praise from Philippe. In the next session, we will see how this relationship faced crises and overcame conflicts that once seemed insurmountable. Over time, Abdel realized that not everything would always be easy between him and Philippe. There were moments when patience ran thin, misunderstandings occurred, and frustrations took over. On one occasion, Abdel felt unfairly criticized after a small mistake during Philippe's mealtime. He decided to take a few days off, something unprecedented since he had taken the job. During that time, both realized just how dependent they had become on each other. Not only physically, but emotionally. Philippe spent days without his closest friend and felt strange, almost incomplete. Abdel, in turn, was surprised to notice how much he missed the routine, the conversations, and even the scoldings. When they met again, there was a sincere moment of dialogue and mutual recognition. Both admitted their mistakes and acknowledged the need to learn how to deal better with tension. This crisis, rather than separating them, brought them closer together, strengthening their bond. They began to understand that trust also comes from the ability to forgive and move forward. From then on, they established an unspoken rule: always talk about problems before they turn into resentment. Over time, these difficult moments were seen as opportunities for growth and maturity. Every conflict overcome helped them evolve, not only as partners but as human beings. And so, the friendship between them became stronger than any challenge. Before meeting Abdel, Philippe viewed life with a certain distance, as someone who had already experienced everything. But Abdel's arrival brought new colors into his existence, showing that there was always something new to learn. Abdel spoke of realities Philippe had never imagined: the lives of immigrants in France and the social challenges faced by young people of Arab origin. This made Philippe reflect on his own privileges and unconscious biases. He began to listen more, question more, and judge less. Abdel, in turn, also changed. He learned to appreciate formal education, European art, and history. Together, they built a bridge between cultures, ages, and opposing realities. To Abdel, Philippe was like a wise father. To Philippe, Abdel was like a rebellious, energetic son. This duality allowed each to fill emotional spaces they didn't know they had. Their relationship surpassed any initial expectations of employer and employee. It became a kind of mutual therapy where each helped the other grow. Many friends and family members noticed how both men seemed lighter, happier. It was as if destiny had chosen them to teach each other the true meaning of friendship. Over the years, Abdel and Philippe's friendship was tested by external events that went beyond daily routines. There were illnesses, medical emergencies, long trips, and even risky situations during extreme sports. During one such incident, while gliding, a technical failure nearly caused a serious accident. Abdel, despite being frightened, remained calm and helped ensure Philippe came out unharmed. That moment further strengthened their bond. It was as if they had silently promised to protect each other. At home, Philippe's family began to see Abdel as an essential part of the patriarch's life. There was respect, affection, and even admiration for the way Abdel treated Philippe so naturally. In return, Abdel gained not only a friend but also a mentor and confidant. Philippe supported Abdel's personal projects, including helping him financially to start his own business. And Abdel, in turn, cared for Philippe with renewed dedication, as if watching over a loved one. They shared important dates like birthdays and holidays, often preferring to spend time together rather than with their families. In those moments, it seemed as though all social and economic barriers simply disappeared. They were two men who, despite everything, found in each other the balance necessary to live with dignity and joy. This deep connection impacted not only their lives but also the lives of those around them. After years of working together, Abdel and Philippe decided to put their story into writing. The book Le Second Souffle, published in 2001, was written by Philippe based on his personal memories. With honesty and emotion, he described how Abdel had unexpectedly transformed his life. The book quickly became a success in France, selling well and receiving critical acclaim. Readers reported having cried, laughed, and been deeply moved by the sincerity and simplicity of the narrative. A few months later, Abdel decided to write his own version of the story, publishing Vous laissez-vous mes requêtes. His book complemented Philippe's, offering the caregiver's perspective and revealing feelings and reflections his employer had never known. The combination of both narratives created a complete, deeply human portrait of this extraordinary friendship. These works caught the attention of film producers, who saw great potential for a cinematic adaptation. In 2011, the movie Intouchables premiered in French theaters and quickly won over international audiences. Directed by Olivier Nakache and Eric Toledano, the film earned over $426 million at the box office. It was nominated for numerous awards and became a cultural phenomenon in many countries. To this day, it is remembered as one of the most moving and human films of the past decade. Its central message remains relevant. True empathy and friendship can come from anywhere. After more than 10 years working together, Abdel and Philippe decided to record on paper the story of their extraordinary friendship. In 2001, the book Le Second Souffle was released in France and quickly became a bestseller. The work revealed, with depth and sensitivity, the daily life of a rich man and a poor immigrant united by an unusual sense of mutual respect. In 2011, the literary success became a film with the release of Intouchables, directed by Olivier Nakache and Eric Toledano. Starring François Cluzet and Omar Sy, the film grossed over $426 million worldwide, becoming one of the most watched French films in history. The core message touched millions around the world: the importance of seeing others through a lens of humanity. Today, the friendship between Abdel and Philippe is remembered as an example of how relationships can transcend social, cultural, and physical boundaries. Both are still alive and maintain contact, even after their professional arrangement ended. Abdel wrote his own book, telling his version of the story, complementing Philippe's narrative with emotion and honesty. Together, they proved that real human connection goes beyond appearances and social expectations. The city of Neuilly-sur-Seine, where everything began, carries a piece of that story, remembered by those who lived it or witnessed it closely. Many hospitals, schools, and cultural centers use this case as an example of inclusion and empathy in medical and social training programs. The real-life story behind Intouchables continues to inspire films, documentaries, and lectures around the world. It shows us that even in the most unlikely circumstances, we can find meaning, growth, and love.